Good morning, everyone. This is Amber von Harten on Council staff. Thanks for joining us this morning to hear about the draft vision blueprint for the snapper grouper fishery. And this webinar will cover the strategic goals for communication and governance. So again, most of you all have been sitting in on the last couple of days. For anybody new, the way this will work is I'll give this presentation and go through all the different objectives and strategies and proposed actions in these two strategic goals, and then give you a little bit more information about the timeline for the project, as well as how you can also participate to provide more public input through other meetings as well as written comment. And then we'll open it up to discussion, and the way that will happen is if you're joining us by phone or on your computer, you can just raise your hand using the little hand icon that's next to your name on the webinar panel, and raise your hand, and then we will unmute you, and you can ask your question or bring up your discussion item. If you don't have a mic or are having some technical difficulties, you can always type in your question or comment using the questions dialog box that's also located on the webinar panel. So with that, we're going to get started here. Again, some background on the project. This project began back in December 2012 and was kind of driven by stakeholder input the council was receiving about their concerns about how the fishery was being managed. And so the council really wanted to get out among the stakeholders from the ground up and get their input on what they felt was not working with the fishery, and then some ideas for how they could fix some of those problems in the fishery. So this visioning project is only focusing on the snapper grouper fishery for now, and the end goal is to come up with this draft vision blueprint, which will be this long-term plan that will have a vision statement and specific goals, objectives, and actions to address 4 different strategic focus areas, which I'll talk about in a minute. And again, the cornerstone of this project has been the public involvement throughout the entire process. Council wanted to make sure that they were talking directly with stakeholders to have them a part of the process throughout the entire project. So the draft vision statement is what you see on the screen here, and it reads, the snapper grouper fishery is a healthy, sustainable fishery that balances and optimizes benefits for all. So this is kind of been the overarching guidepost for carrying out the project. So to collect all this stakeholder input, the council staff and council members hit the road in the spring of 2014 and conducted 26 port meetings. So they were held in different fishing communities throughout the region from North Carolina all the way down to Key West, Florida. And we had over 370 participants take part in those meetings. And the meetings were very informal in nature. They were facilitated by staff, and more of a discussion about what was not working in the fishery and some ideas for how to improve management of the fishery, focusing on very specific goals and objectives. So the 4 strategic focus areas that all of this information was kind of compiled under are management, science, communication, and governance. All the information from the port meetings were compiled into summaries, both state summaries, individual port meeting summaries, as well as sector summaries, and council used this information to prepare for and serve as the content for their October 2014 council member visioning workshop that was held here in Charleston. And some of the specific key issues that the council discussed during that 2.5-day meeting included sub-regional management, reporting and data collection, bycatch, access to the fishery, stakeholder engagement, habitat and ecosystems, and allocation. The result of that workshop were the development of the 4 strategic goal documents that are available on our website, focusing on management, science, communication, and governance. And those documents include input from both the port meetings that were held, as well as some input from council members themselves. And so since December of 2014, council has been revising and tweaking those different draft blueprint documents, and took one final look at the drafts in June, and that's what you have available to you now are the draft vision blueprint documents. So what is this vision blueprint? Again, like I said, it's this long-term type of strategic plan that will help guide management actions into the future for the snapper grouper fishery. And again, it's built around these 4 focus areas: science, communication, management, and governance. So the structure of the blueprint is each strategic goal has its own separate document and has an overall goal as well as objectives, strategies, and actions that will kind of guide council in attaining that overall goal for each specific strategic goal. So the communication goal has 4 objectives and 6 strategies, and then each strategy has up to 13 individual actions. And the governance goal has 3 objectives and 3 strategies, and each strategy has up to 6 individual actions. So let's start talking about the communication goal. And the overall goal for this is employ interactive outreach strategies that encourages continuous participation and supports 2-way engagement between managers and snapper grouper fishery stakeholders while building a greater understanding of science and management. So the first strategy, the first objective under this goal is to develop communication approaches to provide streamlined and timely information and increase awareness and engage stakeholders. The first strategy under this goal is talking about using innovative technology to improve stakeholder participation. So things such as web-based public hearings, which the Council has already started doing just recently in the last year, implementing remote listening stations for hearings and also educational meetings on specific topics. So that's what we'll be doing next week when we do the comment stations for the Visioning project. Using the port meeting model for in-person meetings. This model of this informal kind of discussion meeting that was facilitated by staff was really well received last year, so doing more of those types of meetings. Using web-based tools and other types of technology to collect public input, as well as to provide educational workshops. The possibility of having a comment box on the Council's websites for stakeholders to submit comment after reviewing a scoping presentation or a public hearing presentation. Continuing the Q&A webinars that we've been doing before each public hearing to get input and on the actual amendments, but also offer these Q&A webinars on different fishery management and fishery science topics of interest. Council uses Constant Contact as their main email distribution software, and the idea came up to add a checkoff box on the Constant Contacts registration so that we could get a better handle on how many sector-specific email lists to target different emails to. The second strategy is talking about better utilizing the Council's website as a clearinghouse for information about Council news and regulations and different Council activities. So we heard from several folks during the port meeting about having staff-moderated chat boards on the Council website for each sector, incorporating a real-time calendar that displays current fishery closures for each sector, creating a separate page that just has all of the educational resources and materials produced by the Council in a one-stop shop. Again, establishing a comment or suggestion box on the website that allows stakeholders to provide comments on a specific topic or provide constructive comments on Council activities and process. And then using website analytics to track the downloads on different presentations and other documents to make sure that the outreach materials that we're producing are actually being effectively used by stakeholders. The next strategy is talking about alternative outreach approaches to engage stakeholders in the actual management process. So using things like public service announcements via VHF radio and radio stations to announce meetings and other regulation changes, possibly implementing an advertising campaign highlighting council activities and some of the success stories of the council's activities, using informal polls or surveys to take input on a specific management action before the council actually starts to develop a certain management strategy, working with existing online fishing forums to collect input on a specific topic, using more posters and flyers sent to fish houses and other dealers to announce meetings and as well as any types of regulation changes to reach the fishermen that use those docks, creating an incentive reward program for stakeholders that remain active in the management process, and continuing on, possibly using recorded telephone messages to active stakeholders about different council activities, using web-based surveys to solicit input on specific management topics, supporting expansion of the marine resource education program to other areas of the region. And this is a program that's supported by several entities that has a science workshop as well as a fishery management workshop, and fishermen can apply to be a part of the program and participate each year. So expanding that, right now it happens down in St. Petersburg and Tampa, Florida, but possibly expanding this to other areas of the region. Collaborating with local port agents to serve as community liaisons to convey management information to the fishermen that they encounter on a daily basis. Try to participate in area festivals regularly, have a booth for the council at different festivals. Consider using paid angler focus groups to get input on specific management issues. And again, more informal style port meetings for educational purposes and also to talk about upcoming management issues. Rotating the different locations of in-person meetings. So trying to match the meeting location with the issue that's at hand so that we reach as many affected stakeholders as possible. Expanding the council's social media efforts to include other types of social media. I'm happy to report that we now have a YouTube channel, and that's actually where the recordings of these presentations will be posted. And then also outreach tools for polling the public on different habitat issues as they relate to the snapper grouper fishery. Moving on to objective 2, this one is talking about communication that encourages and supports engagement with a diverse audience of stakeholders. So looking at how we target communication to different sectors of our stakeholders. So using targeted communication strategies, such as direct mailings targeting snapper grouper permit holders, developing a list of key industry stakeholders and also basic community profiles for the region, developing a database of snapper grouper fishery related contacts, so beyond just the fishermen themselves, but also recreational fishing clubs, bait and tackle shops, dive clubs, seafood dealers, retailers, and other types of fishery-related businesses. Developing a one-page fishery management resource information tool by sector. And also making sure that we're using appropriate outreach materials that meet the needs of a wide generational range of stakeholders. So not just only providing electronic and web-based types of outreach, but also make sure we still have some hard copy paper outreach materials for those folks that don't use the web. Objective 3 is talking about collaborations with other entities on fishery-related outreach programs. So looking at working with partners who are already doing recreational angler education and collaborating with them on information about reducing discards. Also looking at developing partnerships with other organizations that are already doing youth outreach to do some youth outreach materials, primarily in electronic format, and also partnering for educational field trips about fisheries, federal fisheries management. And then also outreach strategies related to connecting habitat and fisheries. The next is focusing on outreach dealing with stock assessment and how those results are used in management. So targeted outreach programs about the council process and the scientific review process, and more information about the role of the SSC. Angler education programs about fishery science, stock assessments, and data collection, and then using educational webinars to convey these different fishery science concepts. And the last objective is also talking about improving understanding about how social and economic issues are linked to fisheries management issues. So again, working with different agency partners to provide information about seafood and fishing business marketing strategies that may increase profits. This was something that came up during the council member workshop in October, and they realized that there's a lot of other agencies that are providing information to fishermen about marketing opportunities and strategies for the commercial side of things. So possibly adding information to the council's website about those different seafood marketing strategies. Also working with the Marine Resource Education Program partners to add a module about fishing business marketing to their MREP management workshop. And then also providing information to fishermen about marketing of alternative or underutilized species. So that concludes the communication strategic goal. Next is the governance goal, and the overall goal reads as commit to a transparent, balanced, and timely decision-making process that allows flexible yet well-defined protocols and strategies for managing the snapper grouper fishery. So objective 1 is talking about accountable and flexible decision-making processes. So the first strategy focuses on efficient decision-making process that would include evaluating the current council process, possibly streamlining the amendment development process, considering alternative methods for collecting public input, ensuring timely access of amendment documents and other materials to the council website, mechanisms for evaluating the current decision-making process to ensure consistency and accountability, and then flexibility in how scientific information is incorporated into management actions. Objective 2 addresses building capacity to streamline those management efforts and better coordinate with management partners. And some of the strategies suggested for doing this would be to enhance existing and develop new partnerships with different agencies, academic institutions, and other organizations. So it's trying to reach out and establish those working relationships with non-fishery entities and agencies for future marine management issues. Strengthening relationships with existing fishery management partners and clearly establishing the roles and responsibilities of each. Consider getting involved in the regional planning initiatives that are going on in our region that would affect the snapper grouper fishery. Expanding partnerships with academic and research institutions to coordinate fisheries science research to address specific data needs for the snapper grouper fishery. And identifying non-traditional partnerships and sources of funding to support fisheries science research and management. So whether it's an industry partnership or an NGO supported partnership and things like that. And the last objective under governance is talking about communication with stakeholders to ensure that the needs of the fishery are understood and considered throughout the council process. So the one strategy under this objective is talking about a formal and informal process for engaging stakeholders. So ensuring that information to stakeholders is timely and in an appropriate format about proposed management actions. Alternative methods for collecting public input, evaluating the composition of council advisory bodies to make sure that they adequately represent all different sectors of the fishery, and also establishing clear ground rules and a process for the public meetings that are held by the council. So that concludes the governance strategic goal. So here is the project timeline. So as you see in this table here, Council is collecting public input through September. September 1st is the deadline for submitting written comments. And the Council will review all of the public input at their visioning workshop in September at Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. And they'll use the information received about public input to help prepare for their October workshop. The October workshop will be here in Charleston, and this is where the Council will determine what items will stay in the vision blueprint and what items may be removed. And then they will also start to prioritize which action items could be short-term action items that would be addressed more immediately in a new snapper grouper amendment, or the action items that would take a little bit longer to accomplish, or they need more time to consider how they would carry those out into long-term action items. So the staff would then prepare the final vision blueprint between September and December, and then Council will review it and approve it at their December Council meeting in North Carolina. And then also start to work on some of the short-term action items and developing those items into a new snapper grouper amendment. So all of the materials, including the strategic goal documents, the presentations, all the information from the port meetings, as well as all the briefing book materials for every workshop that has been held since December 2012, is available on the Visioning Project page here at this link that I'm showing. And there's 4 different ways this summer to provide public input. The first are these live webinars, which today is the last in the series for this week. Yesterday we had 2 about the management strategic goal, and the day before that we had webinars about the science strategic goal. Starting next week we'll have local comment station meetings, so in-person meetings that the public can participate in. And again, like I said, you can submit written comments via our online comment form or by mailing and faxing comments to us. And then there's also going to be an opportunity in August during our regularly scheduled public hearings for folks to sit down and talk with staff and council members about the draft vision blueprint. So again, here's the schedule of the live webinars. We'll be back again tonight at 7 going over the same presentation. So if you have time to digest it throughout the day and want to join us again this evening, please feel free to do so. Here's the schedule for the local comment station meetings. So these are, the way these meetings are going to work is area council members will actually be at these meetings in person at the different venues to talk informally with stakeholders. And then council staff will be tuning in via webinar to provide a presentation and also have discussion with anyone that attends a meeting in person. Or if you don't want to attend in person, or you want to listen to another meeting that's out of state, you can tune into any of the meetings coming up through the 30th of July via webinar. So next week, July 13th through the 16th at 6 p.m. we'll be in Florida, July 20th through the 21st in South Carolina, the 22nd and 23rd in Georgia, and then the 28th through 30th in North Carolina. And all these meetings start at 6 p.m. And if you want to participate by webinar, the registration is available on the Visioning Project page. You can submit your written comments using the online draft vision blueprint comment form. Mail comments to me at the council's address, or fax your comments. And I'm going to pull up our website so you can see where to go to get to all this information. So here's the Visioning Project tab. If you click on that main page, it should take you to that page. Well, we may be having some difficulty with the connection on this computer. There it is. It's just a little slow this morning. So scroll down, and here are all the documents. I also forgot to mention that to go along with these documents, there's some terms possibly that are used that people may not be familiar with or they need clarification about. So we have developed this glossary of terms for some of the words that are used in the document. And then here is the information on the webinars. This is where the presentations will be posted for these strategic goal webinars. And then here's all the information for each state comment station. And here on the other sidebar menu is the draft vision blueprint comment form. Wait for that to load. But the way this works is similar to any form that you would fill out online, and it's not loading for some reason. So I'll go back to my slide here because I have an image of it. You can fill out your general comments in this comment box, and if you scroll down the page, there's a tab for each management goal or each strategic goal, management, science, communication, and governance, and you can type in your specific comments about what you support and why, and what you don't support and why under each of those tabs. Enter the security code and then hit the submit button. Just be sure that you don't navigate away from this page because you are not able to save your comments. So you have to stay on the page and enter everything at once and then hit submit. In August, we'll be out on the road for public hearings for Snapper Grouper Amendment 36, and we'll be in these locations, and staff will be on hand at these meetings as well to sit and talk about the draft vision blueprint. So August 10th and 12th in South Carolina, August 13th in North Carolina, August 24th in Georgia, and August 25th in Florida. If you have any questions about the project, the presentations, the documents, or any of the upcoming meetings, you can give me a call or send me an email. And with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions. And again, just raise your hand if you